better money choices. Choose a bank that takes your money seriously. Business Watch is brought to you by Nedbank.
The time is 2 p.m. This is Business Watch right here on Eswatini TV. I am Notelesi Tole. A very good afternoon to you. This is the first Wednesday of August. I hope you've had yourself a lovely day. As always, we bring you the latest insights, trends and developments shaping the local business landscape. In partnership with Nedbank, we seek to empower you with the knowledge to make smart financial and business decisions. Among other things on the program today, the World Bank's May 2025 economic update on Eswatini spotlights the country's ballooning public wage bill, which is projected to reach almost 10 billion emalangeni by the end of the 2025-2026 financial year, describing it as fiscally unsustainable, as the wage expenditure accounts for over half of domestic revenues. This leaves little room for development spending on critical sectors such as health, education, infrastructure and youth empowerment. To address this, the World Bank is calling for a renewed fiscal adjustment plan aimed at reducing the public wage bill to below 10% of GDP. According to the report, this reform is essential for rebalancing government expenditure and improving service delivery while restoring macroeconomic stability. We'll have economist Sanele Sibia to help us interpret the data, interrogate the recommendations and explore the implications on public employment, service efficiency and political will. But first, here's a look at our business news today.
Digital helps you make cross-border payments. Human gives you global specialists. Digital allows you to apply for a loan anytime, anywhere. Human connects you to credit experts. Digital puts you in control of your money, while Human connects you to wealth advisors. Digital allows you to freeze, unfreeze, cancel, and reorder your card. Human gives you that personal touch. Digital when you want it. Human when you need it. Get the complete private banking experience with Nedbank Private Clients.
In our business news this afternoon, the Achieving Alumni Eswatini Association, in partnership with the British High Commission, has launched the Empowering Growth Through Mentorship and Knowledge Sharing Among the Youth in Eswatini project. Speaking at the launch at the High Commission at Eswatini, the British High Commissioner to Eswatini, Colin Wells, highlighted that this initiative is a powerful way to drive economic development while addressing the critical skills mismatch among young people.
We're talking today about the mismatch between the skills that Eswatini has and the skills that Eswatini needs to have in the future, and that's very important. His Majesty the King, yesterday the Prime Minister, talked about having a sort of a first world Eswatini, and that's a correct ambition. It's going to take a while to get there, and what will be needed is modern skills training and having the right skills needed for that modern Eswatini. So we all need to work towards that, and I can assure you the British High Commission and will be doing its little bit to help that.
The Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Information, Communications and Technology, who was representing the Honourable Minister Savannah Mazia, says government continues to use digitization to upgrade skills which will directly improve economic development.
Your support alongside the Achieving Alumni Eswatini Association in launching this first ever community outreach program under the Achieving Alumni Program Fund, CAPF, is a shining example of the true spirit of diplomacy in action, which is a people-focused, future-oriented, and impact-driven. As the government of Eswatini, we are duty-bound to prepare and equip our people with globally relevant and competent and compatible skills that can stimulate our local economy and position Eswatini as a producer of solutions, not just a consumer of technology. In the Ministry of ICT, we are resolute in our mission to prepare our people, especially our youth, for the opportunities of tomorrow. Through our digitalization flagship program, Government in Your Hand, we are working tirelessly to bridge the digital divide, ensuring our young people have access to globally recognized certification from some of the world's most influential tech institutions.
Business Eswatini's president Mvuselelo Fakuzi says the workspace landscape is forever changing and Emaswati need to find a way to adapt.
The workspace is changing, and I think our young people need to think differently about the jobs of the future, because what we grew up doing is not going to create jobs for them. If we're thinking about the future, it cannot be the traditional skills that we've learned in the past. It has to be a future that is a future platform that's able to attract and create jobs that are appealing to the youth.
The Chevening Alumni Eswatini Association, in collaboration with the British High Commission, has launched a project which is empowering growth through mentorship and knowledge sharing amongst the youth in the country. The objective is to host a series of e-learning leadership and entrepreneurship workshops for tertiary students in collaboration with key stakeholders. The alumni will also run a structured mentorship program pairing youth with established leaders in their field of interest. Reporting, Nelson Langamandla, Derek Msibi, Ezulwini.
There is a need to strengthen public-private dialogue on ease of doing business and MSME competitiveness, increase value addition, productivity and competitiveness through responsible producer-buyer alliances, among other initiatives, to ensure that Eswatini businesses are able to fully participate in the SADC-European Union Partnership Agreement. Speaking during the agreement's validation workshop at Royal Villas, European Union Ambassador Carsten Mecklenburg urged local businesses to contact them if they encounter challenges while trading under the agreement.
This gathering marks a critical milestone in our collective efforts to ensure that the EPA becomes not just a signed agreement, but a living instrument for sustainable development, inclusive trade and economic transformation across the SADC region. The EU SADC EPA is more than just a trade agreement. It is a bridge between our regions, a catalyst for inclusive growth, and a reminder that economic prosperity thrives when countries unite. We are living through interesting times in terms of global trade, in terms of trade rules and their respect, but also the introduction of tariffs. So I'm not going to elaborate more on what everybody is aware. You just need to open the newspaper every day. But it is still an interesting element to be aware that from the European Union side, for Eswatini and most of the SADC members also, there has been zero tariffs, and this is not going to change.
Tabile Nhlabathi, the Undersecretary in the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade, says government is committed to ensuring that businesses fully benefit from the SADC-EU Economic Partnership Agreement.
Let me thank the EU for the support provided through ITC. I would also like to thank each one of you for making the time to be present here from your busy schedules to attend this very important event, where we are validating the information provided by yourselves in a bid to review the EU SADC-EPA implementation strategy.
The SADC-EU Partnership Agreement allows Eswatini products preferential access into the European market, especially sugar and beef. The Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement includes trade in services and cooperation investment. Reporting, Nelson Dlangamandla, Ezulwini.
And now we'll go for a break. When we come back, we're in conversation with our in-house economist, Sanele Sibia. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the program. On to this now. The World Bank has once again raised concerns over the high level of government wage expenditures. In its latest economic update, the bank recommended that the government reduce the wage bill to below 10% of the GDP under the renewed fiscal adjustment plan. With a workforce of approximately 40,000 employees, how much of the government's resources are currently absorbed by salaries? And how would a reduction in the wage bill improve public expenditure efficiency? To explore these questions, we're now joined by Sanele Sibia, who joins us via video link. A very good afternoon to you, Sibia. A rising public wage bill in the country will see employment costs increase steadily to reach 11.3%. Can you help us understand how this move could impact the country's spending priorities, the youth job crisis, and long-term development?
Thank you, Notsilene. Good afternoon to the viewer. So as you may be aware that the issue of our wage bill is not a new issue. It's one of the issues that we've been dealing with as a country, and it does need to be arrested. So as it were, we currently have around 44,000 people employed in the public service. And in his budget, the minister projected that he would spend around 10.8 billion Malangeni on salaries just on the 2025-2026 fiscal year. Now, if you look at the overall budget, you'll realize that other recurring government expenditures sit at around 5-point-something billion. That is half what government pays in terms of salaries. And when you look at your capital projects, the government projected to spend around 7 billion in this current fiscal year. So now when you look at the fact that we have a very high wage bill, now that means government becomes a bit limited in terms of the ability to execute other government initiatives and also to drive growth. And then in terms of the issue of growth, if you remember, earlier in the year, the World Bank presented another study, and it showed that the wages in government are a bit higher than wages in private sector. So now that brings about another conundrum in terms of how do we go about lowering the wage bill, because you would expect to lower the wage bill by having other people being absorbed in the private sector. Now with those wage dynamics, it does make it a tad bit difficult to see people moving to that sector.
With a struggling private sector growth, Sibia, and the recommendation here is to reduce the public wage bill to below 10%. From a technical standpoint, why is this target significant, and how feasible is it for our government?
So what one has to understand is you need to get your costs to a sustainable level. Remember, wages are what you would call a recurring expenditure. That's money the government always needs to have. So once it gets above a certain threshold, then that makes it a bit volatile in terms of will government be able to finance that. I'll make a simple example. If you look at how much we're going to be getting from SACO, I think we're going to be getting around 10.4 billion Malangeni. Yet we need to spend around 10.8 billion Malangeni in terms of our wage bill. Now that means government needs to find a way of funding this shortfall from elsewhere. And given the volatility of SACO receipts, they are up and down. So you kind of don't want to be overstretched as a government, because you always need to be in a position to operate. And when you have a very high wage bill, that means these are things you can't even put on hold. You can't put people's salaries on hold when you don't have the money to pay them, right? They always must be paid. And if you look at our data, our debt trajectory right now, so that means it limits our ability to somehow find alternative ways of financing government expenditures. And then now, in terms of the feasibility of that goal, Notzile, one has to understand that government also has a role to play in terms of employment creation. So that makes it a bit difficult now to say you want to cut the wage bill, because the only way you cut the wage bill is if one, you could not replace staff that is retiring, just keep it as it were and not replace. Or you could just give people a voluntary exit. So that's another way you could lower the wage bill. But we note that with the weak private sector, as it were, it's a bit difficult to entice people to leave public service because the economy is not yet creating jobs. So the feasibility of the goal, not depends on whether government and the private sector will be in a position to make sure and grow the private sector to sustainable levels, and then that's when we'd be able to see that shift. Another alternative to lowering the wage bill would be to work so hard to improve on tax collection, improve on the GDP growth, so that you collect more taxes. That way, as a percentage of your GDP, while you're holding the wage rate constant, it would be still at sustainable levels.
So on one end, it's about managing wage expenditure. On the other, it's keeping people employed. How can the government strike a balance between containing the wage bill and maintaining critical public service, especially in areas of health where we still need health workers, nurses, doctors, and in sectors of education where we still need, professionals to actually teach our youth or upcoming young people, actually?
Yeah, and so what we usually say there is the government, you should find efficient ways of doing things. The first one is to ask yourself whether government needs all 44,000 employees. And if that cannot be done with, say, 30,000 employees. Now it becomes a problem of what are you going to do with this excess 10,000 employees who are now going to add on to the unemployment rate, which is another problem that we are facing. So what we need to do is find efficiencies while at the same time we continue supporting the private sector to grow and get to a level where the private sector becomes more lucrative compared to the public sector in terms of wages. I'll make an example of the nursing profession. We've seen nurses move to NGOs, not because the terms were good, but because the salary was good. The terms you are on contract and whatnot, but the salary in itself was able to shift nurses onto the NGO sector. So that's what we need to do as a country: drive private sector-led growth and, improve on the wages within the private sector and allow private sector to grow while you then limit the role of government in business. Alternatively, it could be to privatize certain entities, like privatize in the sense of truly privatizing, getting certain entities like your SOEs or state-owned enterprises to run themselves and not require any subvention from government. So there are such services within government that can be privatized and be offered at market rates. So all those are things that we need to look through. But what we require as a country is a broad strategy and overall overhaul of the civil service and an overall turnaround of the economy before we can get to a point where we'd be comfortable with people's jobs being cut from government. Because right now, quantitatively and, when we do the numbers, when we run the numbers, it makes sense. But in terms of the political objective of government, I do not see them cutting jobs, not at all.
The update, Sibia, it puts much emphasis on a fiscal adjustment plan. What specific adjustments would this plan require? Are we looking at wage freezes, reduction in headcount, or redeployment of public
Fiscal adjustment, is one of those broad-based strategies which also includes finding efficient ways of executing government's mandate. It also looks at, merging certain other issues. Remember the issue of different state-owned entities that have an overlapping mandate. All those have to be merged, and then also find effective ways of delivering public services. I mean, it includes, the digitalization drive, because once you digitalize, you lower the per capita cost of delivering the service. So it's one of those broad and all-encompassing strategies that we need to adopt as a country and implement wholesale instead of implementing bits and pieces here and there. While at the same time, when we push that fiscal adjustment, we need to ensure that you are pushing fiscal adjustment so that you can focus on sectors that can drive growth. You want government to catalyze those sectors so that as soon as the economy grows and people get employed, people pay more taxes, and we get onto that level where private sector really does lead.
All right, thank you very much, Sibia. That was in-house economist Annelies Sibia filling us in on the World Bank's recommendations that the government needs to cut the wage bill to at least below 10%. Rather, we'll catch a break. After that, we'll have a relook at one conversation that we had with NAB Bank on their current account services. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back. You're still watching Business Watch, powered by Nedbank Eswatini. Today, we're joined by Zamangwane Dlamini, who's the head of branch networks at Nedbank Eswatini, and she's here to talk about their current account, its functionality, fees, charges, and etc. Very Sagumugula Zama, thank you for joining us on the show. Today, we're talking about the current account. What is the current account, and how does it work?
Good afternoon, Lou. Nyapila. Quite well, thank you. And thank you again for having us as the Nedbank team. So a current account basically is what we know can otherwise be known as a check account. It's a basic and everyday transactional account that is offered by banks for everyday use. In simple terms, so how it would work is that a client would be able to actually access their funds in terms of withdrawals and deposits, but I think in terms of the qualification criteria, it is accessible and available to all our customers or all types of customers, in the sense that it's available to students. We offer student current accounts. Most banks do as well within the industry. We also offer our current accounts, of which our current accounts are those who are salaried and working. And those obviously have their own attributes as well, which I think we can speak to here. But in terms of your listing or salary account is to just have low moholo, which is consistent over a 3-month period, of which so you would need to take to your bank. You would need to have your ID. And you would also need to have a proof of residence, or what we call as confirmation yokuthi uhlala kuphi noma usemqasheni, in terms of the expectations of knowing lelo customer lethu. But again, just to go on in terms of how the current account would work is that, as I said, a customer is able to deposit money into their accounts as well as withdraw through different mediums at any point in time. This is ATM's availability, of which ngilo machine ukhokha imali, speed points, uyaswipe, uyathenga, as well as e-commerce. Some people shop online. The current account is a feature that offers that. I mentioned the card because the card is an access mechanism, of which it's a debit card that a bank will issue you to access your funds. This, of course, Eswatini will always know that comes at a particular price, and probably sometimes what we want to get to appreciate is how much it would cost you to manage your current account. This includes what we call maintenance fees or monthly account fees, and these are just charges or the cost of owning an account in that regard. So how this would happen is that banks will sometimes offer discounted pricing, what we call bundled pricing, or waive some fees in terms of transactability, which means you may have some swipes that are free, or you may have some withdrawals that are actually free or discounted and thereafter charge you.
Also, I want us to talk about the process, after I've applied for the current account, and students are eligible to apply for the current account and adults as well. How long does it take? The process in apply the current account, how long does it take to connect for the card line? And the accessibility, I think you can access your money via ATMs, can also access my money anyhow online with my banking app.
That's correct. So my student account or student current accounts, we do offer them. And the intention of that is to grow the culture of students familiarizing themselves with the financial system, as well as giving them the platform to start this financial journey even before they're out of tertiary. So the sort of documents that we would request or require is this either an acceptance letter or some proof of registration with an institute of higher learning. That would be the criteria, including, of course, the ID, because we must know who you are. And like you are saying, we then have platforms. A current account by default gives you access to a lot of financial solutions, including the platforms from which you can transact. Like you're saying, from your mobile, from your tablet, our online banking, mobile banking, cell phone banking, apps and the like, which would be very ideal for students who are purchasing books, as an example, and just as well for professionals who are in the working environment. The period it takes is you would typically walk into a branch and we would be able to assist you within a one-day period. We are also able to provide you with a card on an immediate basis. So the cards that we offer are actually personalized debit cards that we offer. But because we have an ordering process, we would issue you with a temporary card in which you can transact completely and fully until the personalized card has arrived, which is within a 7-day period, give or take, yes.
All right, Zama, you did mention that students can open a current account, adults as well, 18 and above. So how long does it take for a person to open a current account? Is it days, hours, weeks?
Yeah, so I think with the progression of technology and trying to improve our client service and the centricity, the process of opening an account, a general current account, not limited to students, takes about an hour and a half at Nedbank. And the customer would be able to have an account number where they can start transacting instantaneously. They are able to make an instantaneous deposit into that account, a minimum fee, and they would get the interim, almost want to say temporary card, whilst they wait for the personalized debit order. Personalized debit card to be ordered and arrive. Yeah.
Okay. Just to make the customer understand, Zama, because not to give us the actual fees in charge, but just to give the customer an idea, perhaps the number of withdrawals, ATM, swipes when delay store, how do you charge it? And charge monthly fees.
Okay, thanks, Lou. I think e-pricing that banks would apply is typically premised on the account conduct or lama aspirations noma ngendlela lo maintain ngayo le account yakho. Uma umuntu lotawusebenzela futhi, you might want to take advantage, or you will be guided by financial experts as net bankers, who would guide you into a package that would be suitable for you. It's no different from a subscription of any kind in the world in which we're living in. You have a family of 5, you would subscribe for a package that fits for a family of 5, and if you are an individual, there's tailor pricing that is specific to how you would live if you are by yourself. The same is true with the pricing within banks. If you happen to be mundulo funak bandlisha, what we call bundle pricing, we offer the bundle pricing, which, to your point, comes with the other benefits where they are substantially discounted transactions. Either a number of free swipes, what we offer is 5 free swipes on the current account, and as an example, as well as ATM withdrawals, because you would be a frequent transactor. The accessibility of our online transactions in terms of executing your payments or paying bills or purchasing airtime is significantly reduced on the platform because you are doing it at your convenience.
Yeah, speaking of bills, you did talk about managing my I have full accessibility. I have full access on managing my current account. Ngiyakhona ukubhadala ama-bills, mhlambe ngiyakhona ukusenda imali. What are the limits per day? Ngiyakhona yini ukuwashintsha on my mobile app ukuthi my daily limit ngifuna ishintshe mhlambe from 20,000 ngiyabuyisa to 50,000. Do I have that accessibility?
Yeah, once again, because of the great benefit of actually having these platforms available with the current account specifically, is because we put back the power into your hands in terms of your responsibility in handling your account. So you are doing everything at your convenience. You are doing everything at your discretion as well, which includes lokba able lokushinja ema limits depending on your needs. You could be traveling to South Africa and you decide you want to increase your limits, or you could have seen a potential risk in this regard. You are also able to manage everything on our online platforms, reduce your limits, cancel your card, freeze your card if you're still looking for it and you've probably misplaced it. You may also be able to send yourself funds into our wallet from the platform. So the full management of your account vele ungayenda from all our platforms.
Okay.
Yes.
So again, I'm saying interesting lenye account from Nedbank and I want to change from current to another account. Do I get instant help from the service center?
Yes, you get instant assistance. One would hope that you would keep the current account because the current account we almost want to say it's the foundational account. Okay. It really is. It does become a transact account, but of course we offer all types of products and accounts to help you save in terms of our savings types accounts, to also help you invest for long term in our fixed deposit types accounts. But I do believe that we'll get into the further detail of all these types of accounts specifically. You can save for your children as well in that regard. But the processes take more or less the same. It's almost instantaneously. It happens when you visit us at a branch. You can email us on our help desk email, helpdesk@nedbank.co.za as well for assistance, and the account would be open for you within the 2 hours as well.
Okay, so before I let you go, are there any other additional perks, when you've opened the current account?
Okay, the additional perks are there. And I think what we are also trying to do is to get more customers to sort of come into the space where we are managing that financial journey holistically, including some nuanced offerings that are specific to how we have profiled Lou in terms of our CVP, what we call CVP offerings in financial terms, what will be moving on to rewards of a nature and further discounted pricing, accesses to premium servicing and services as well. So those would be the enticing things in terms of the transact. But of course, kukhona nalokunye lesahambisana nabo customer ethu la lokuhambiselana na the current account, which includes offering loans, instantaneous overdrafts. Mangabe sosembinjini, we can offer you an overdraft over a shortened period. We can offer you a personal account. So yaqala ufuna kwakha, we would offer you a home loan because sasibonile ukuthi i-current account yakho uyiconducta kanjani, and we are qualifier. So ufuna kuthenga imoto, we want to be the ones who are actually helping you purchase this the stream car that you'd wish to get. So those would be the very
Additional
nice
perks, yeah.
perks.
All right, thank you so much, Zama. If you need more information, do visit their service centers, Lambabane, Manzini, actually countrywide, bayatfolakala udova kabanti ngayo i-current accounts. Let's take a break. Sabi yakho namanje.
Welcome back to the program. That was a recap of one conversation or a sit down with Nedbank on their current account services. Now, moving on with the program, the Youth Chamber of Commerce Industries, Eswatini, continues its drive to engage the youth in establishing and running successful businesses through youth forums. On Friday, they will be conducting the forum at Mangayane. We are now joined by President Sakile Nsibanzi, who will talk to us a bit more about the forum. A very good afternoon to you, Sakile, and thank you so much for your time and coming in the studio today. Tell us briefly about the impact, or rather the main objective of the youth forum that will be taking place in Mangayane on Friday.
Good afternoon, Notsile. Thank you for having me on your show, and good afternoon to you viewers at home. So the objective of the Youth Business Forum that we're hosting in Mangayane is to this is the first time that we'll be hosting in Mangayane. We host other fora in other municipalities, but to kick off this year, this is the first one that we're hosting in Mangayane. And the objective is to collect data to map out the current state of youth in Mangayane, where they are now, what are the rising trends within Mangayane, and what is the future that they want to see.
Right. You, as a company, you deal mostly with young people. You've gone far as Shiselweni, you've covered, good parts of the country, conversing with young people in terms of entrepreneurship. But really, what are some of the struggles when it comes to young people starting their businesses and also just having to sustain them in the long term?
So at the Youth Chamber, we see the 59% unemployment rate of youth as an opportunity. To say that how are we organizing ourselves now as young people to understand the kind of capacity that we need, the kind of support that we need in terms of financing, and the kind of markets that we need in order for us to actually get our markets out there. And the local policies, like the SME policy, actually communicate to the things that we currently need as youth. So at this point, we just are gathering young people in these youth forums that we're hosting in the different municipalities to understand what kind of help is needed next. So we don't just end there, because we come back now to say this is where we kicked it off last year and this is where we are now, because we want to track our progress in order for us to see where it is that we're going and how far we have come.
Beyond the forums, beyond the sit-downs, what kind of help is actually needed for young people?
So first, it's really the commitment from stakeholders within the municipalities to say that, look here, young people, we've been speaking for a very long time, but now we are committing to actually helping you. And commitment from the young people themselves to say that we've seen the situation going on for a long time, but we are here to actually own the change that we want to see in our communities. And that's essentially what we're doing through these youth business forums.
Right.
And beyond that, we even speak to the IDP plan for the different municipalities, which is sort of like a projection that will inform the kind of businesses that are to be established within that particular area.
Right. Doing business in an urban area is different compared to doing business in a rural area or a remote area. What key themes or topics will be covered, especially for the youth in Mangaene on Friday? Yes, they do have an urban district, but really a lot of them are still somewhat within, the outskirts. So what are some of the discussions that they can expect?
So we understand that a lot of the activities that happen around Mangaene are farming. So in understanding that, how do we quantify, because we're hosting 50 young people, and from all of those 50 young people, all of them have different aspirations and projections on how they would want to see their businesses growing. So we don't want to confine everybody to say that you are all going to go into agricultural businesses, but we do create an informative session guided by the IDP to say that these are the kind of businesses that you can host.
Right.
So the particular theme is actually just us coming together to commit to say that, you know what, we're moving on, and it is guided by the IDP plan for Mangaene. Yeah.
Agriculture is one of the key sectors of growth right now, Sakile. Among them, we also have technology and infrastructure, digital infrastructure development. How do you think young people can leverage on existing technical infrastructure, digital infrastructure, to actually start their businesses, to run their businesses, to create employment opportunities, not just for themselves, but also just to commercialize what they have?
So technology makes things simpler for us as a generation who are currently alive at this point, not just the young people. So in the agricultural industry, we have to understand that there's the part of processing that we are not tapping into as a country. We hardly have local products represented within our shelves. So how are we addressing that as a youth, to say that we are able to have a Notiles tomato sauce within Spa or within the local grocery shop within Mangaene. So essentially, we want to highlight that to bring in the opportunity within the entire value chain of the agricultural production industry.
Right. We hardly have local products in local shelves. Why is that? What are the gaps there?
So the biggest gap for a while was the barrier to entry, which was the fact that there were certain standards for you to reach in order for you to put your products inside shop. But now we have Ingelo certification, which actually it doesn't reduce the standards, but it assists to bring in SMEs that wouldn't normally afford the normal rate of standards to actually come into these shops to start selling their products.
Right. Besides the Ingelo certification, these barriers to entry, how is the Youth Chamber of Commerce addressing them for the youth, simplifying things or access to markets for young entrepreneurs and SMEs?
So at the Youth Chamber of Commerce, we understand the importance of the infrastructure of organizations. So what we have done is we've mapped out all of the organizations that are actually working towards bringing the current conditions that we are experiencing in the business landscape, to say that given the current conditions, this is how this particular stakeholder works for you as an individual who's trying to develop your business. We've just refined that structure and made information more accessible to young people. We've developed a startup toolkit, and it is easier now for people to understand what business means in Eswatini, and if you're doing a business, this is actually the route that you should be taken in order for you to be more successful.
Right. Now, with only 43% of SMEs able to adopt digital tools, back to the subject on leveraging technology, what policies or support structures are needed to make youth-led SMEs digitally competitive?
So it's infrastructure at the end of the day, and the decentralization of our services, even at the Youth Chamber. So we are doing that through an AI chatbot. And it is part of us leveraging on digitization to say that we can actually reach out to more young people by using this particular tool. So it has made our advocacy more simpler, and our communication with young people in business as well as stakeholders that we work with more easier.
All right. Can you expand on the AI chatbot? I think this is a resource that young people can use to get more information. What are we talking about when we say AI chatbot?
So an AI chatbot is essentially a tool that we're using to help young people understand the current scope of business in the country, and to also give us the feedback on, so this is how many young people that are able to grasp these concepts, or perhaps the thresholds now that we have 50 young people who know what the 7 pillars of the SME policy means. So it means that we can work with them in this particular regard. So it helps us to classify the different capacities of the youth that we're working with and to assign now the implementing, because at the end of the day, we want more than just policies, right? We want to implement all of these things. So we want to be seen as actually carrying out the actions that we want to experience within the communities that we live in. So essentially that's what the chatbot does. It gives us real-time information to actually action out.
All right. Real-time information to action out. Sakile, thank you very much for your time. That was President of the Youth Chamber of Commerce and Industries in Eswatini, Sakile Nsibande, filling us in on the forum that they will be having with the Mankayane youth this coming Friday. We'll catch a break. After that, we're back with 4-hour market analysis segment. Stay tuned.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Welcome back. You are still watching Business Watch, powered or brought to you by Nedbank. And now it's time for our market analysis segment, which is why in the studio we're joined by Nozibusiso Dembe, who is the treasury dealer at Nedbank. A very good afternoon to you, and thank you for joining us. How are you feeling?
Thank you. I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. You look great.
Thank you.
Let's get into it. Despite the world's, being the world's most sanctioned country, Russia has continued to use its vast energy wealth to bankroll its war in Ukraine. Now, of course, U.S. President announced sweeping new secondary tariffs will impact any country still trading with Russia if a ceasefire with Ukraine is not agreed by Friday, August 8. How could we see this, hitting the global economy, especially when it comes to oil?
Thanks, Nosilia. So yeah, we're going to cover it in the part of oil as well. But I think that took the market by surprise a little bit. But it seems they've managed to shrug it off, probably amidst all the other trade threats that are going on. They've managed to shrug this off because this was all started by India. India is purchasing oil from Russia, and Trump has threatened to impose tariffs higher than the 25% he had initially offered on India. So the market did shrug this off, but I think when it gets more pressing, that's when you'll start to see real effects.
All right. I think this is an update about an hour ago where Russian President Vladimir Putin met with Steve Witkoff, who is U.S. President Donald Trump's special envoy for talks in Moscow. Now, this meeting comes just days before a deadline, August 8, to agree on a ceasefire in Ukraine. Could this be music to the ears for markets when we get into the figures?
It could be, but also it's really about the outcomes of the conversation, right? We've seen a lot of negotiations, whether trade or whatever the case, but what matters more is the outcomes of it. So I think it's a good indicator, though. It's a good indicator.
We've seen a lot happening since Friday. from, from rates, interest rates to, losses. But the market has really shifted focus to a whole lot of things. How are the currencies looking?
Yeah, no, Friday was quite eventful. We had a lot going on. We had jobs data coming out. We had trade tariff deadlines. We had interest rates locally and in South Africa. But to start with the jobs data in the US came out on Friday, and the market was shocked because it came out much lower than expected. For July, the figures show that 73,000 jobs were created, and that was quite low in comparison to previous months.
Right.
And then also the jobs data for the previous months, being May and June, were also revised. So in May, what was initially announced was 144,000 jobs.
Right.
That was revised down to 19,000. And in June, 147,000 jobs were announced, and that was revised down to 14,000. So
Right.
these are significant revisions, and they've caused President Trump to actually order that the Commissioner of Labor Statistics be fired,
Right.
because these are key matrices, and the significant revision is quite telling. So that's what that has caused, and it's also caused, on our side, the rand to strengthen because the US dollar is weakening.
Right.
So right now, at the moment, we have the rand strengthening. The US dollar against the SZL is trading at 17.8366. The pound against the SZL is trading at 23.7201. The euro against the SZL is trading at 20.6929. But the rand is also riding off the back of increasing gold prices. So we'll see later when we talk about gold, the price of gold has been edging up, and with South Africa being the largest producer of gold, that increase also helps the rand. You also spoke about tariffs. 1 August was the tariff deadline that we're all expecting, where all the countries needed to have been done with their trade negotiations by the 1st of August. The 1st of August came and went. South Africa seems to have not managed to secure a trade deal with the US. The EU has managed to secure 15% tariffs with the US, but they still do face 50% tariffs on their copper exports. A lot of other countries have managed to secure tariffs, trade deals, including the UK, Japan, Palestine. They've managed. A lot of them have managed, but a lot of countries have not managed. So these are very, very uncertain times in markets.
On the issue of tariffs, Zibu, if the US goes ahead with secondary sanctions, especially over India and its Russian oil imports, how could this affect global trade flows and India-US relations in the long term? Not to say that you are a political analyst, but just give us the picture. How could we see Asian markets reacting to this?
So the markets are likely to react quite negatively. I think the people who will be hardest hit will be the consumers, which is me and you, because if tariffs are imposed and secondary tariffs are added onto that, that automatically makes the cost of living very expensive.
Right.
Inflation shoots up. If inflation shoots up, interest rates shoot up. It becomes expensive to borrow money. So those are the things we're most worried about, more so in the inflation aspect of it, because that will affect a lot of people, especially the consumers.
Right. And our equities this Wednesday, how are the numbers looking?
On the equities front, the S&P 500 has been suffering losses since Friday when the jobs data was announced. It's suffered, I think yesterday was the 5th day of losses for the S&P 500, but hopefully the investors in the next couple of days will be monitoring the earnings reports from major companies like Disney, Uber, McDonald's, and so on. So maybe those earnings reports for their half-year earning will change the direction for the S&P 500. But the losses you're currently seeing on the screen are on the S&P 500 are led by tech stocks. On the FTSE, it was also impacted by the jobs data on Friday, quite significantly, but you can see it's recovered quite well. And that's also because their earnings reports for key companies within the UK were also announced, and they've allowed the bounce back. And then the JSE All Share Index had a sharp downturn on Friday after South Africa missed the deadline for tariff negotiations. But you can already see on the screen that it's starting to come up again.
What is driving that improvement?
I think it's more so hope. I think it's more so hope, and also due to the interest rate cut that happened last week Friday, a lot of investors sort of tend to move their investments into stocks when interest rates decrease. So that's probably also it.
And our commodities?
On the commodities front, I think we've touched on it quite a bit already, starting with oil. Oil is currently trading at $71.41 per barrel, and the price of oil slipped on Tuesday or yesterday due to rising OPEC supply. On Sunday, OPEC supply announced that it will be increasing its supply from September, and as well as coupled with a weaker demand for oil. So the market, I think, for a while has been concerned that the demand for oil in the next coming months up to year end will be quite low. So there is that combination is driving the price down, but we might see it rebound as the day progresses. On the side of gold, gold is currently trading at $3,364.81 per ounce. And I've already indicated that the price of gold has been increasing, started on Friday when the jobs data was announced, but it's for a combination of reasons. The first is safe haven demand caused by this uncertain tariff period that we're in. The second is the expectation of interest rate cuts. The jobs data on Friday kind of indicated that the economy in the US might be struggling. So in order to stimulate that economy, what they typically do is then cut interest rates. So the expectation is that there'll be 2 more interest rate cuts before year end, starting in September, and that also has then ticked up the price of gold. And then lastly, President Trump, we're waiting for President Trump to make his announcements about the appointments in the Federal Reserve. We had the governor resign last week. And we know also that President Trump has been after Fed Chair Jerome Powell for some time now, threatening to replace him, threatening to have a short list of candidates to replace him. So I think with all of that going on, the price of gold has been ticking up because at the end of the day, it is a safe haven.
The price of crude oil, though, is also somewhat improving today. For consumers, can we expect a decrease anytime soon?
So hopefully, because I'm a consumer too, hopefully. But realistically, it also takes a while for the fluctuations in the price of crude oil to actually translate to a decrease or an increase in the price of fuel for us. And also there's a lot of factors that go into the price of fuel, especially in our economy. There's a lot of levies that go into that. So it won't immediately translate, but between you and I hope so.
We can only hope. Thank you very much, Zibu, for your time. We'll be on the lookout for those numbers. But for now, we'll catch a break when we come, and I'll see you in a bit.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Digital helps you make cross-border payments. Human gives you global specialists. Digital allows you to apply for a loan anytime, anywhere. Human connects you to credit experts. Digital puts you in control of your money, while Human connects you to wealth advisors. Digital allows you to freeze, unfreeze, cancel, and reorder your card. Human gives you that personal touch. Digital when you want it. Human when you need it. Get the complete private banking experience with Nedbank Private Clients.
And 1 minute before 3 p.m. brings me to the finish line of today's edition of Business Watch with Nedbank. Until next time, take care.
Make better money choices.